Silent Betrayal. The Secret That Destroyed My Marriage. My name is Elena, and what I'm about to tell you is a story I never thought I would live. But life has strange ways of testing us, and sometimes temptations come when we least expect them. My husband, Alejandro, is a dedicated and hardworking man, and despite the years, our marriage had been solid. Until recently. Since he was promoted at work, his free time drastically reduced. We used to share dinners, long conversations, and moments of intimacy that made me feel loved. But now, he came home late, tired, and more than once, a little tipsy. My life began to feel empty, as if I were sharing my home with a stranger. One day, Alejandro informed me that his best friend, Samuel, needed a place to stay temporarily. Samuel was going through a tough separation, and Alejandro, being the good friend he is, didn't hesitate to offer him our home. At first, I felt uneasy. I didn't know Samuel beyond what Alejandro had told me, and the idea of having another man in our home right when my husband and I were going through a rough patch didn't excite me. But I accepted because I trusted Alejandro's judgment. Samuel moved in with us one Friday night. He was a charming man, always with a smile on his face, and his presence in the house was soon felt. It didn't take long before the nights were filled with conversations over drinks. Alejandro and Samuel would stay up talking late, and although I joined them sometimes, my husband often ended up sleeping on the couch, leaving Samuel and me alone. One particular night, after Alejandro had fallen asleep following a couple of bottles of wine, Samuel and I stayed in the living room. We talked about life, his issues with his ex, and how he missed the company of a woman. He told me how things had cooled off in his relationship long before it ended. I felt a connection with him, a mutual understanding of the loneliness we were both experiencing. Eventually, I helped Samuel get Alejandro to bed. He was completely unconscious, and it took me a while to settle him. As I did, I felt Samuel's hand on my waist. I turned to look at him surprised, but he didn't say anything. He just looked at me with those eyes full of desire that I hadn't seen in a long time. I tried to pull away, but the sensation of his touch, combined with the wine and the adrenaline of the situation, left me immobilized. Without saying a word, Samuel led me to the edge of the bed, and before I could react, he kissed me. The kiss was unexpected, filled with desire and a passion I hadn't felt in a long time. My heart raced, and at that moment, all the guilt and doubts vanished, leaving only the desire to be desired. Samuel's lips traveled down my neck, his hands exploring my body with urgency, and I couldn't help but let out a moan that came from the depths of my being. The room filled with an intense, almost palpable energy. Every caress, every whisper, every touch awakened in me a lust that had been repressed for a long time. I couldn't resist any longer. I let him take control, feeling how his breath intertwined with mine, how his skin burned under my hands. The moans became more frequent, more intense, as my body responded to every movement with absolute surrender. The night progressed in a dance of overflowing desire and passion. Our bodies intertwined, hands clutching the bed linens, and whispers turned into gasps. Each second seemed eternal. Each moment was an abyss of pleasure in which I immersed myself without thinking about the consequences. Samuel and I were two lost souls, seeking comfort in each other's warmth. Finally, when the intensity reached its peak, we lay side by side, our breaths intertwined in the silence of the night. There were no words, no need for them. The weight of what had happened hung in the air, but at that moment, only exhaustion and satisfaction filled my mind. When I woke up the next morning, the sunlight was streaming through the windows, illuminating the room. Alejandro slept beside me, unaware of what had happened. I got up carefully, trying to process what I had done. Guilt began to invade me, but I knew it was a secret I had to keep, something I could never confess. Samuel left our home a few days later, and we never spoke of that night again. Life went on, but I could never forget what had happened. That moment of weakness, that absolute surrender to desire, remained etched in my memory, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, temptation can be irresistible. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe. It will help us a lot. If you're looking for someone to spend time with, leave us your photo and contact details. We'll include our email address in the description. And you? What's your story?